A little bit of action. Welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcasts. Johnny Venerable, Bo Brock. Well, for the first time in almost a calendar year, the Arizona Cardinals, they went out and spent a little bit of money on an external free agent, Bo, something we've alluded to on this show for a hot minute. If you've been following PHNX Cardinals, Kyzir White, formerly of the Eagles, joins his ex-DC Jonathan Gannon in AZ. What do you make of it?
I love the pickup for the Arizona Cardinals. I think that it matches up with the caliber of player that they want this roster to represent going forward. You know, Jonathan Gannon said it in his introductory press conference. He wants guys that are going to play. They're going to be adaptable. They're going to be violent, right? They're going to be explosive, and they're going to be smart. And I think that Kyzir White, a guy that's is kind of a self-made linebacker at the NFL level, you really have to like it as a Cardinals fan, because this is a guy that wasn't, a top draft pick. He was a 4th rounder, had some time in Los Angeles for the Chargers, and then made his way to Philadelphia and immediately becomes one of the key players on this defense and one of the unsung heroes, I guess, of this very talented defense due to his versatility and his knack for being able to do all the dirty work that, your front 7 as far as your defensive front, and then you, of course, those talented cornerbacks don't do in the defensive secondary. I really like what Kyzir White brings to the table. I think he's the perfect first signing for Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah, you needed a link, right? From okay, you had 70 sacks for this team last year, but none of those players have come to Arizona, right? 17 interceptions. What's a link outside of course, Gannon and new defensive coordinator, the coveted Nick Rallis? This was always the move that was there to be made. To a lot of people's credit, pointing out, well, Zaven Collins plays middle linebacker. Why do you need TJ Edwards? And I would argue Zaven Collins' first-round pick should have a higher ceiling than an undrafted free agent like Edwards, who went to Chicago. And then you saw what TJ Edwards got from the Bears. And we talked about it on yesterday's show. If you missed it, I would say pretty reasonable pickup. So then we kind of did the numbers in our head. Of course, we had been hearing that White was a target of the Cardinals. It was a target of Gannon's. And it's they should be able to get him for substantially less because he plays, off-ball outside linebacker. And sure enough, people in the chat are alluding to it. I mean, it's basically a 2-year deal worth up to $11 million. But as our buddy, esteemed colleague here, PHNX Cardinal beat reporter Howard Balzer reports, that's with incentives. This deal broken by our friend of the program, Jordan Schultz. I mean, at most, it's $11 million. His base salary is, I think, anywhere between $2.5 and $3 million. And you couple that with what Kelvin Beachum is making, which, of course, broke after our show yesterday. I mean, you're adding starters. Beacham's a starter at right tackle. White is especially a plus starter, I think, at outside linebacker for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for White. This is going to be the biggest payday of his career. But in the grand scheme of things, Bo, for a team that, if you're the Arizona Cardinals, that has almost $40 million in available cap space, to fill a hole and a link like that, to be a culture and a building block for Jonathan Gannon, to come here and say, Kyzir, show him how it's done.
Exactly.
Nick, Kyzir, show him how the defense is going to go. You needed somebody to do that. And he was the easiest plug-and-play guy next to, you would assume, Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins.
Yeah. It's Zaven Collins is going to play the TJ Edwards role in this defense. And what you wanted was to find Kyzir White to kind of play that Robin to his Batman as far as his linebacking core. And without, being a true threat to taking Zaven Collins off the field. And who better to do it than Kyzir White himself? He was available, and the Arizona Cardinals are able to bring him over. And as you mentioned, as far as a very affordable deal, and when you look at the Arizona Cardinals and what Monti Ossenfort's going to try to accomplish this offseason, it's not getting and expediting this rebuild to the point where they're back in the playoffs after one horrible 4-13 season. No, I mean, it's cleaning up the mess that Steve Keim created for this organization, and it is an absolute mess. So you're trying to figure out who are some building blocks, who are some players that you can move forward with without having to go out in free agency. And free agency is usually built to fill holes on NFL rosters. It's not to go, hey, we're going to go get this guy and he's going to be the foundation. No, it's guys like, hey, we missed on the draft at a couple spots, or we're down a linebacker, we need an edge rusher, we need an offensive guard. let's go and sign one of them, and we'll probably have to pay a premium for it in order to do so, or hit on one of these guys that didn't have success with one organization, maybe a change of scenery, he can be good elsewhere. Now, this is somebody that knows the system, somebody that's going to be in his prime years, a guy that we've said is self-made and is going to be ready to hit the ground running in Nick Rollis's defense, which is an extension of what Jonathan Gannon ran in Philadelphia. And I think that it fits really well. And then you mentioned, we didn't get to talk about it because we joked about it and it came to fruition as soon as we got off air. As soon as we got off air yesterday, the Arizona Cardinals made their first move, and it was to re-sign Kelvin Beachum. They made that official today. It's a 2-year deal, and Beachum getting around $5 million according to the reports, where if you look at Kelvin Beachum, you look at his 2022 season where he played in all 17 games, Johnny. He played over 1,100 snaps, almost 1,200 snaps. He was penalized 7 times, and he allowed 5 sacks. All right, he had a PFF grade of around 70.6. And then you look at what was on the open market yesterday and what fetched over an $80 million contract from the Denver Broncos and Mike McGlinchey. And they basically had their seasons mirrored each other as far as the Pro Football Focus breakdown. And the Broncos are paying him over $80 million. I think that's already a win for Monti Ossenfort. You get a guy that locker room wise is very well respected. I was surprised just by his overall candor. Since he talked at the end of last season, called Hollywood Brown speed racer, and he talked about the hold-ins, and he was very transparent about the dysfunction last season, and then his comments about Kyler Murray, which I don't think, when you look at the full scope of what he said, wasn't horrible. It was a uncomfortable truth about which direction and where Kyler Murray needs to grow. I don't have a problem with him coming back. I don't think that's a non-starter in Kelvin Beachum coming back, but I was surprised by it, but I don't mind the deal.
Well, and listen, can we be real for a second? I would say like 80% of the fans online, everybody's got a right to an opinion, that are anti this move are anti it because of his comments made about Kyler Murray. And here's what I'll say. I didn't love the look either, but I also feel like it won't bother Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray will go and continue to work and grind this offseason and get back. And I would think under this new regime, it'll be squash. But I don't ever
I'm more concerned about his relationship with Hollywood Brown.
I don't care about that. Because, listen, Hollywood Brown's on a 1-year contract. We'll see if Hollywood Brown needs to worry about Hollywood Brown, 1,000-yard receiver, hopefully getting parlay that into a new deal. I mean, really, it's about for me, Kyler Murray and his relationship with K1, which I think is going to be fine. But Beachum,
you don't have to look very far to get like what Kelvin Beachum said, like what the headlines were portraying when he said.
I mean, we talked about it. It was the number 2 story on ESPN.com that day, which was ridiculous.
And all you have to do is click on the article, listen to the soundbite, and you'll realize, hey, it wasn't that big of an indictment. It's just saying he's got room to grow at 25 years old.
Yeah. And it's 98.7's job. Kudos to them to ask those questions. But we asked those same questions to other guys on the team during Radio Row in Zach Ertz and James Conner and Rondell Moore, and they all defended Kyler Murray to almost to a fault.
Well, and so there's one difference there.
What's that?
They depend on Kyler Murray to get them the ball.
So does Kelvin Beachum now. He's blocking for him. But I took those comments when he made them as kind of reserved as they were, and they were ran with them kind of the opposite way as when none of us thought Kelvin Beachum was coming back. I didn't have that source. I didn't think Kelvin Beachum was coming back. Then you look at what they gave him. Let's talk about the football aspect of it, because I think they'll squash everything. It'll be fine. And Kelvin Beachum, I mean, Larry Fitzgerald loves Kelvin Beachum, which probably means Michael Bidwell loves Kelvin Beachum, right? And he's a great ambassador for the Valley and a great human being. He's been on this show before. He's a really good football player. I called him an above-average tackle on Twitter yesterday, and people are like, what are you talking about? No. He's their best offensive lineman when he plays. He's better than DJ Humphries since he's been here. He's somebody that is his upside immense. Is he a Pro Bowl level player? No, but he's somebody that's going to play every game. They brought him here. He had not played right tackle in like 8 years and seamlessly filled in at right tackle. And the most important attribute is available. Like we're bitching and moaning about Zach Allen and Byron Murphy. Like what's the common denominator there? Those guys aren't healthy. They don't play. And then here's Kelvin Beachum, plays every game, signing almost a vet minimum contract. And people are like, what's going on here? What are we doing? It's like, you need offensive linemen. Let's take a beat for a second. People in the chat commenting, well, maybe he'll get beat out. That's a possibility. Maybe he can be a swing tackle for you. I floated this on Twitter, and people are like, oh, the cap doesn't line up. I mean, you could always look to move DJ Humphries if you were interested. They're going to be interested in the top tackles in the draft. It would not bother me at all. You take a Paris Johnson Jr. or second round tackle, and
trading
you go
down,
deep. Yeah, you go 4 tackles deep this year. I don't have a problem with that. You want to play Josh Jones at guard for the first time in 2 years? See how that works out with the new offensive line coach. There's one position unit I'm okay with adding veterans, and it's the offensive line group, like seasoned veterans, like guys in their 30s, because you need them. Like I want to see Josh Jones get a shot, but Kelvin Beachum on almost a vet minimum deal does not bother me at all.
No,
even if that doesn't happen.
Shouldn't. I mean, come on. I mean, it's number one, it's not your money. And number two, like, what would you have liked them to go overspend on Mike McGlinchey? Do you want him to go spend $50 to $80 million?
Is not worth that contract.
No,
I think we both know.
They had
Mike McGlinchey twice a year for about a 4-year span, and that was when McGlinchey was a little bit younger. I mean, McGlinchey, to me, that's the McGlinchey contract, the Edmonds contract to the Bears. That's the problem with free agency, and that's why it's okay to take a deep breath and say, I don't want to pay $80 million to average players. I want to play in this sandbox over here.
Yeah. And Josh Jones, I mean, this is a guy that I think he could vie for starting at either tackle position, right? I mean, it's going to come down to, Jonathan Gannon and Monti Ossenfort, Dave Sears, and the entire new regime. They have no ties to these guys. And Humphries restructuring and Beach signing for just above the vet minimum, it doesn't, pretty much cement themselves as the starters going into this season. They're going to play the best players. And, the one thing that bothers me still about Josh Jones is he still gets penalized way too much. I mean, I thought that he filled in very well for DJ Humphries down the stretch, but, in back-to-back seasons, you look at him and his penalty numbers are way up there, and hopefully playing under a new offensive play caller and maybe just a more disciplined team overall, that Josh Jones is somebody that's going to go the right direction, and the penalties will kind of start to lessen for a guy like that. But, we know this. You just watch any football team. It's very rare that you have the offensive line that you start with finish the season. So you need depth at that position, and when you're not overpaying for it, then even better.
Well, and listen, at the end of the day, Josh Jones could just end up being a swing tackle in the NFL. And people are saying, well, that's an egregious 3rd-round pick. Again, what did we talk about yesterday? Wasn't Monti Ossenfort's pick. I mean, it's just – and if Josh Jones, I would imagine, will go – offensive linemen who are spot starters go and get nice contracts in free agency. It's not a problem having Josh Jones under contract this year because he's not making any money. But the problem is that he may never develop into what you hope. He's a 1st-round talent that year, and he fell all the way to the 3rd round. He was.
Who was he a 1st-round talent to? Who said that?
Me.
No, you didn't say that. Who's the source that said 1st-round talent?
I thought out of Houston, he should have gone
Steve Keim said he was a 1st-round talent, and they got him at 72nd overall.
Right after that acquisition, I said this is a gift from the football gods. But my problem with him is I watched him play guard, albeit right guard. He just didn't have the power to play guard. He didn't have the power to extend and get to the second level. So again, if they go into this, I think they're going to take a tackle. I think they're going to draft a tackle. So they're going to have a bunch of tackles, and we're going to have a good time with a bunch of offensive linemen. With this team historically not having
Kelvin Beachum and DJ Humphries are old. They are, and they're serviceable. Yeah, this is fun. That's fine
right now. They're not DJ Humphries. This is it for him. He was a draft pick of the Keim era, and he has not been healthy, and he's making a bunch of money. Does that sound like somebody who's going to stick around? I think they moved that money around, Bo. They restructured mostly to say, okay, DJ, go out and have a great year and go get paid by somebody else after we cut you. Right? So that to me feels like high character guy, Steve. This is all it feels very calculated, does it not? They're putting their chips in place. And again,
Austin saying PFF had him as 1st-round talent. As far as how he graded out at the college level, playing at Houston, playing in the American Conference, he was one of their highest, rated to their grading system. But we knew that there was, technique flaws with Josh Jones. There was going to be a learning curve, guarding playing tackle at Houston and then playing in the NFC West.
I was in Dallas, shameless plug, when the Cardinals basically locked up a playoff spot 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was he and Beachum at tackle, and he did a phenomenal job that day, a
Yeah.
phenomenal job. And I think people saw that performance. He, I think, had like a 70 plus PFF grade. Like play him at tackle. Let's see what he can do. And then you got Humphreys holding in during training camp. Not a good sign. And then he gets hurt. I mean, the offensive line to me needs the biggest kick in the ass on the team.
When you
Entitlement. Rodney Hudson, they coaxed him out of retirement to get a fat check. Humphreys is like, yeah, you'll pay me, and then I'm not going to play. And then they haven't developed anybody. That position room, just throw a bunch of shit at it. Let's just keep flooding it with resources.
Sure. I mean, if you're getting this year's version of Will Hernandez or Will Hernandez himself, I have no problem with that. I think Will Hernandez was one of the few guys that, when you look at the last year's team, you're like, okay, there's Zach Allen's the case at the right price, and the price was never right. There was a bidding war for him, and he ends up getting $32.5 million guaranteed in nearly a $46 million contract from Denver. And then you've got Byron Murphy. We'll see what happens with him. And then Will Hernandez. But it's a very short list of guys that you're like, okay, these are guys that you need to bring back. Otherwise, people walking, it's not something that you're going to be heartbroken about. But yeah, Josh Jones. And the thing about Josh Jones too, and the last thing I'll say about it is, like, it's not like he's been short on opportunities. I mean, I feel like he's had at guard, as we mentioned, and then also he's had opportunities at both tackle spots and had sample size chances to secure a job, and he just hasn't done it. And I think the biggest issue is for him is the being undisciplined and being penalized as much as he has been.
100%. If you need an updated look at where the Cardinals stand during this free agency period, we've got you covered. Producer Emma Extraordinaire put together this fancy graphic. And look, we can put somebody on the external signings list, Bo. Kyzir White, the first external signing of a multi-year contract since the late Jeff Gladney signed his deal with the Cardinals 2 years ago on Thursday. Then we didn't talk about it. Prater's back. Prater on a 2-year contract. Not, I don't hate that move. Corey Clement's back on a 1-year contract. He's got some familiarity, I would assume, with Gannon. He came from Philadelphia. And then, of course, we're going to talk about this next. Zach Allen goes to the Denver Broncos. And a move I think a lot of the fans disliked for a couple different reasons, but at the end of the day, came down to money. And then, of course, the aforementioned Humphrey restructure. Golden gone, Robbie Anderson gone. We may need to build that column out a little bit bigger in the cuts category because I'm hearing more are coming down the pipeline. But before we get to Zach Allen talk, I want to remind everybody right now, DraftKings, it's never been a better time to dabble on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Download it now. Use that promo code PHNX. New customers can bet a mere $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. If you want to wager on spring training baseball, NBA regular season en route to the postseason. How about some NFL draft odds? You can get it exclusively right now. Props, bets, boosted bets right now only on DraftKings, only with promo code BO, PHNX, 200 in bonus bets instantly. And you can place that $5 bet on anything, a prop, over, under, spread, whatever you want to do, the money line. You don't even have to win it. Just bet it only on the DraftKings Sportsbook app, only with promo code PHNX. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See those show notes for details.
There's a frenzy out as far as the lounge area at PHNX.
I heard some screaming.
Yeah, they're screaming. They're hooting and hollering. Guys that had asked for people to quiet down while they're on set don't give a shit that I'm on set right now and doing a show. But it's because the NCAA tournament tipped. You got the first 4 going on right now. And, of course, people have some action. They dabbled on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. But a good place outside of hanging out at PHNX and watching a hoops game is Four Peaks. Four Peaks, synonymous with great beer, but also great atmosphere and a great place to catch a game. Suns, they are taking on the Bucks tonight. We've got our PHNX Suns watch-along. If you want to go maybe watch that on your phone while watching a game at Four Peaks, that's a great little plan to have. You can have a kilt lifter. You can have any of their IPAs like Hazy, Raj. You can get some of their bourbon barrel stuff, which is so smooth. It's where they take Kentucky bourbon barrels, where they usually age whiskey or bourbon, and they put their delicious beer in there, and it's just as smooth, if not better. You got to check those out. And then they've got all these great events. they're going to have, of course, March Madness games on at the end of this week and throughout the tournament. But also you've got events going on, fourpeaks.com/events. You can find all your beer week entertainment. They just had their spring beer dinner, which is unbelievable. Several course meal paired with all their delicious beer. But you got to check it out. You got to spend St. Patrick's Day there as well. St. Patty's Day at Four Peaks, 8th Street Pub. Doesn't get any better than that. Hang out with your favorite degenerates, including us at PHNX at Four Peaks in Tempe for a damn good time. Got to be 21 years or older, but you also got to enjoy it responsibly.
I'm going to flip the script here before we talk about D-Hop. I want to talk, because we had a chance to do this on air. Zach Allen signed a contract, Bo Brock, with the Denver Broncos late last night, and we had argued on the show yesterday just exactly what Zach Allen would be paid, what his worth was. And I think the general consensus among the fans online on the Twitter streets was, yeah, it's a high price tag, but the Cardinals need to re-sign their own players. And again, my point was that continually, this is not a player that was drafted by Monti Ossenfort. It's not his player. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's Michael Bidwell's player because he's been writing the checks for 4 years. But re-signing your own, I think there's a big fat asterisk with that theory. Because again, Monty may have scouted him while he was a member of the New England Patriots once upon a time and said, not for me. Now, I think Zach Allen's done a nice job. I'm happy for him. He's worth what he got paid, because in life you are worth what you get paid. Okay, it's not what you deserve. It's what somebody's willing to pay you. Mm-hmm. And good for him and good for the Denver Broncos and Vance Joseph. But the fact that this was Steve Keim handing out the checks and trying to double down on an investment he made, that was never the case. These are people with fresh eyes and an outlook different than the prior regime. And it was always fair to wonder, did Zach Allen and subsequently now Byron Murphy both fit that plan?
It does. I mean, Allen certainly didn't, right? But I mean, I disagree to an extent to where I think that all 32 teams would take a guy like Zach Allen. But as far as you got to look at the context of it and circumstances, our friend Damian Anderson always likes to say, as far as the circumstances go for the Arizona Cardinals, they shouldn't be in the conversation to pay a guy like Zach Allen $15+ million a season as they're staring down just kind of retooling, reshaping, rebuilding this roster, right? I mean, the mess that Monti Ossenfort inherited from his predecessor and Steve Keim, who resigned before the end of the season, it's an absolute mess. And when you look at how they need to kind of dig in and start to kind of clear things out before they start to add things on, it's like if you buy a house and your plan is to gut it and remodel it, you're not going to start to fill it with furniture and put pictures on the wall, because you're probably going to tear down some of those walls, right?
Yeah.
So I just don't think that, even as good of a player that Zach Allen is, the Arizona Cardinals were just not in a position to go and pay for it. I mean, I joined the guys from DNVR Broncos to talk about this acquisition, and I think it's a great acquisition for the Broncos. But at the same token, I think it's the right move for the Arizona Cardinals at this point in their franchise's history to let him walk. And, if they can recoup third-round pick, compensatory pick, great. I think that that's a good consolation prize, especially for a GM. At your point, he didn't draft him. And if he can get anything and recoup anything in return for Zach Allen, then great.
I think it's tough, too, because you look at the fact that the GM now said, we're not in the business of giving, he didn't say this, but with his actions, we're not going to match what Zach Allen's getting on the open market. But then it's easy to turn around and say, look at your defensive line group. You got a bunch of backups and third stringers, which I would not disagree with. So it's easy now to connect the dots and say, well, you need to sign Zach Allen because you have no starting defensive lineman. And I get that in theory. But I also feel like if he was not the right fit for you at $16 million, then it doesn't matter who's on the roster already. I mean, to me, it's like that position has long been ignored in the early rounds of the draft. I mean, Zach Allen was the highest defensive tackle, not named Robert Kimdichie, that Steve Keim ever drafted. He never took a defensive tackle in the second round. Kimdichie flamed out. They made countless move after countless move to try to address it in free agency. Jordan Phillips, Darius Phelan, they were all horrific signings and mistakes. So the only way this gets corrected, outside of a couple, maybe you get lucky on a Corey Peters-esque type of player, you bring somebody in like that on a 1 to 3 year deal, you got to invest premium picks at this position now. You got to hit a home run. And that's kind of what they're angling. Not kind of, is what they want to do. I don't think it's going to happen in the latter half of the top 10 after they trade down, Bo. But you're talking about that period now of 34 and beyond, the rest of the draft on day 2. They almost need to double down at that position. It is by far, even more so than the offensive line, the weakest position unit on the team. And I say that being staunchly committed to my stance that I don't think Zach Allen is a $16 million a year player, or 15 or whatever it is. I know his cap hit this year is only $7 million, but his contract with the Broncos pays him $15+ million a year. What the player I saw in Arizona was not that. To our conversation yesterday, I'm more comfortable in the $9 to $11 million range, but he was never going to get that because it's a premium position and there aren't a lot of candidates on there. I floated this out before the show today, have it sourced now. Like, they're not interested in Fletcher Cox. They don't want to bring Fletcher Cox in there. And I know a lot of people are connected the dots of his age and he's 32, and that plays a part of it, but that's not the kind of guy that they want to rebuild around. They want younger and they want people that fit what they want to do. And Fletcher Cox does not do that. So maybe he goes back to Philadelphia, but they're not going to substitute Zach Allen for Fletcher Cox.
Yeah, and if they take the draft capital that they have already, 8 picks right now for the 2023 draft, and we'll see what happens with DeAndre Hopkins, and we'll see what happens if they trade down from 3rd overall, and that those could bring in even more draft capital. If you have a solid 2023 NFL draft, and you start to develop guys and identify who's moving forward with you beyond 2023, and you're sitting here next offseason and you've got 2024 offseason's version of Zach Allen, and you feel like the defense is that caliber of a player away, then yeah, go spend around the $15.5–16 million that it's going to take to get him in the defense. But the Arizona Cardinals have to use all their resources, and they can't tie it up as far as on a player like Zach Allen. They've lost that luxury of doing that. If Byron Murphy's number continues to come down, and I saw in the chat, and there's a good point, we were making the same point about Jamel Dean, how we're kind of surprised that he got on average $13 million per season, and James Bradbury just got around 12 per season. Yeah. If that number continues to come down for Byron Murphy, if you can get him at a reasonable number, he's controllable, he's young, you know what you're going to kind of get as far as Byron Murphy, then we can start to talk about negotiating a contract for him. But if Minnesota is going to go out there, that you told me that they're tied to him, if they're going to pay him around what they reported his market was going to be, then I think the Arizona Cardinals are back out of play. But if things come down and it's a nightmare free agent time for Byron Murphy, bad for him but good for the Cardinals, then fine. But
yeah, I mean, what's the show been telling everybody for the last 4 weeks? It's like, here's somebody I think they're going to sign, and I don't think they're going to prioritize Zach Allen, Byron Murphy. And they haven't done those things. Now, again, Byron Murphy's number could come down. If he's overplaying his hand and everybody's like, well, Byron, you didn't play last year and he had a tough end of 2021, 2021, maybe he comes back to Arizona on a prove-it deal. I don't think so. I think there's enough teams with available cap space, not named the Cardinals, to go out and spend big on Byron Murphy. We're still in the first week. It's still wave 1. Yesterday it was crazy. We were talking about, is Zach Allen's market deteriorating? And it had been like 7 hours since free agency started. And he got his contract by the end of the day. So to me, it comes down to, I know he wants to be paid. He should be. Go get as much money as you can, Byron. I don't think that's going to be from the Arizona Cardinals. I've never felt that way for either one of these guys. I look at the deals that they're making. They're frugal investments. Now, Kyzir got a little bit more than Kelvin Beachum, but these are 1 to 2 year deals that are not going to hamper you to do anything. What happens, Bo? And they're thinking about these scenarios in their head. You sign Byron Murphy, you give him, $30 million guaranteed or 25 or whatever. You give him a nice 4-year deal. And then you hit on Christian Gonzalez or another draft pick and they're out playing Byron Murphy. And you're just like, shit, we shouldn't have paid Byron Murphy. And then Marco Wilson's coming up and he's out playing Byron Murphy. I don't know if that's going to happen, but those are the things they're thinking about. Like they want to be able to hedge their bet with guys they've picked. And again, he was the 33rd overall pick for who? Steve Keim, who's gone.
He is gone. But, I think the difference between Allen and Murphy and a lot of the Steve Keim draft picks is that they're solid NFL players.
They are.
They are. And I think that I know that Monti doesn't have any ties to him. I know Jonathan Gannon doesn't have any ties to him. But, they should be in the business of signing or re-signing solid caliber NFL players. Now, you just don't want to get into a bidding war. I just don't think the Cardinals have any appetite at this point to get into bidding wars really anywhere. I mean, this is going to be a move the chains feel like type season, don't you think? I mean, as far as what the Cardinals are trying to do, and they're not going to build this roster, and they're not going to churn this roster, based off of free agency, and especially not the first wave of free agency.
There was a popular theory on social media, and it's true to some degree, that like the Cardinals are cash poor. Michael Bidwell doesn't have money to go and sign a bunch of guys and put it into equity like the Walmart people with the Denver Broncos. And that's probably true to some degree. But I've watched this team max out the cap most years with Steve Keim and Michael Bidwell. They've done it poorly. The players they signed are ass. They're not worth the money they gave. But when has the Cardinals ever been in a position where they've had this much money this late in the game? So it tells me, again, among other people telling me this directly, that this is a process where they want to be in the business where, like San Francisco, for instance, like that's the model right now, is they have drafted so well from Deebo Samuel and Kittle and Bosa and all these guys that they then can go and I can splurge on McCaffrey. I can splurge now on Javon Hargraves, right? And they're not even paying their quarterback yet. The Cardinals have not been rewarded for drafting because their drafting has been so poor. And so Steve Keim's result, as a result of not being able to develop through the draft, is, well, every free agency period, sans for last year, I need to go out and I got to spend. And I got to spend to plug all these holes. Because I want to, remember his famous saying is like, I want to go into a draft with no needs and draft just the best overall players. And that's how you end up with Isaiah Simmons at 8th overall or 7th overall, right? That's how you end up with how many off-ball linebackers, because Keim thought that was the best player, because he would go and fill every need in free agency and oversign veterans that other teams didn't want. I mean, look at the teams that are spending big money right now. And everybody does this analogy every free agency period. I love our friends at CHGO and DMVR. The Bears and the Broncos have been inept for half a decade. They have not been good, right? And they have all this money and they have these issues, right? What's the issue with Denver? Well, we got to make it work with Russ, and we overpaid for Sean Payton, and we're doing this. And then what's happening with Chicago? We didn't draft Justin Fields, so we got to flood it and see if it works, right? And we got to try to win now. Rodgers is leaving the division. The Cardinals are in a position where, okay, we want something sustainable. We don't want quick fixes. We don't want to be in a position, I know this definitively, telling Michael Bidwell, do you want to be in a position you were when Bruce Arians left? Mm-hmm. And then do you want to be in a position where at the end of 2021, everything fell apart, it was a house of cards? Or do you want something like Baltimore and Pittsburgh, where you have sustained success around your quarterback, and Kansas City, where you can make some sequenced moves, some telegraph moves, but you're hitting on draft picks and you're getting the next crop of Dansby and Dockett and Campbell and Fitzgerald and Bolden and Antrell Roll. That's the Cardinals need to get back to that. I love Hopkins and Chandler Jones. Those players were not drafted by the Cardinals. So the Cardinals, the window was always going to be smaller because they didn't get their peak years, their early peak years off those rookie contracts. I like what they're doing. I know it's frustrating. There's some patience that's required. And any time the team just outright stinks in the fall and then you come into the offseason, you're preaching patience, that's difficult. Yeah. I get that. But I would rather see patience and then the draft picks playing in the fall than have a bunch of Dennis Gardeck's running around being overpaid.
It's obviously delayed gratification, right? I mean, it's where you got a diet, right? You're a slob. You look horrible. You feel horrible. And
you talking about me right now?
Yeah, I'm talking about you. I'm talking directly to you. Just don't even think about Emma here. Don't think about the chat. I'm just saying you need to get your shit together. You're a mess. Yeah. No, but it's like, okay, I want to do all these things to make myself better. I know I'm going to be better for it, but I got to do a lot of hard work. I've got to start to exercise. I've got to eat better. And I don't want to eat these meals that are going to be required to get me back on track, but it's necessary to get to where you want to go. And the Arizona Cardinals are going to have to get on a serious diet to remedy what they've done to themselves. They've been eating fast food for the last 10 years. It's ridiculous. I was thinking about this today. Steve Keim drafted 3 quarterbacks in 10 years. He drafted 3 quarterbacks. He drafted Logan Thomas in the 4th round. He drafted Josh Rosen and then pivoted to Kyler Murray. And you look at what, the organization that Monti Ossenfort primarily comes from, and that's New England, where he spent 15 years. And even with Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, we were drafting quarterbacks almost every other offseason. And what did they do with most of those quarterbacks? They flipped Jimmy Garoppolo for a second-round pick. They flipped Jacoby Brissett for draft picks. Brian Hoyer. There were so many different quarterbacks that were in that and out of that organization. And you had this guy that never even paid close enough attention. He drafted 3 players at the most important position in all of sports. I mean, this is where Monti Ossenfort's take. I can't imagine the horror and the remnants of the previous regime and Monti Ossenfort, Dave Sears, and Jonathan Gannon, actual front office execs, scouts, and coaches coming in and seeing the horror that was left behind by the previous regime. I bet it was
undersized receivers and off ball linebackers. I mean, and everybody's tongue in cheek saying, "Oh, the Cardinals' first regime, the new regime, the first move is signing an off ball linebacker." No, they're showing you the template. You give off the ball linebackers who are above average $3 to $5 million a year. You don't take them in the top 10 and say they're going to play slot corner. Just horrific decisions. Here's not a horrific decision. Picking spreads. 2 super chats, my guy. Thank you so much. Picking spreads, friend of the
3?
program. 3?
Yeah. First one was a $10 super chat. Big thanks to Picking Spreads. Even though we run a 4-3, I'd imagine what it will be is won't run 3 linebackers too often because that's the modern NFL. I imagine Zaven will be the Mike, Kyzir will be the weak, and Isaiah rotate strong and slot cornerback where he played a lot last season.
I don't think he's going to play corner. I think they're going to get – listen to this. They're going to get corners to play corner, I think.
What?
I'm pretty sure.
That's groundbreaking.
And linebackers to play linebackers and safeties to play safeties. He loves to coach with multiple DBs. But I don't know what they're going to do with Isaiah Simmons.
I want to talk about that in just a second. Picking Spreads, $2 super chat. I said that LOL. I had Josh Jones as OT5 in that draft.
I think a lot of us did.
Yeah, we were talking about first round grade.
He was creeping into first round mocks. Bo doesn't know what he's talking about.
And then $2.10 super chat. Longer Byron's a free agent, the more I think he comes back. Yeah, I mean, I think that it leaves the door open, doesn't it? But I think it still the possibility of it still sways in favor of Byron Murphy. If you look at all the evidence, you probably make the case that he's going elsewhere in 2023. Okay, so this Isaiah Simmons conversation. So do the Cardinals, would they benefit? Would they make Isaiah Simmons more valuable to the franchise by picking up his deal, his 5th-year option? Could they trade him to make him more controllable? Because it'd be like $12 million to whatever team would pick him up. Because otherwise, you have him as a linebacker for you this season or wherever. Jonathan Gannon, he said he's still working on what position he wants him to play, but I would imagine it's some sort of linebacker role. If he has a solid season and you don't pick up his option, he just walks, and you don't get anything really for him. I mean, what do you think the best, I guess, route with Isaiah Simmons is?
You don't want my opinion on that because I'm going to give an unpopular.
You just don't want to pick up his 5th-year option. I understand that.
No, I don't think they do either. And so look at the free agent linebacker deals. Like if you can find a team like Chicago that's going to give a Tremaine Edmonds kind of contract, that's great. And then maybe try to take advantage of that. But I think we've seen the smart teams show the norm of like the Cowboys just signed Leighton Vander Esch, 2 years, $11 million, same amount of money Kyzir White got. He was a first round too. But Isaiah Simmons staff, you just go to ESPN, look up Isaiah Simmons, like his stats are gaudy. He's got gaudy stats. If it was me, if I was doing this, I would try to move him now and let somebody else make that decision and just say, hey, we didn't draft him. He's a really good player, but we're trying to retool our unit and our back 7, and we're a little too expensive. Are you interested? I don't know what I would take for him. I'm not going to say it on the podcast because I'm going to get hate Twitter tweets if I say I would take a 3rd-round pick for Isaiah Simmons. But I think the plan right now is they're not going to pick up his 5th-year option, but like we've talked about, he's going to play. I think he's going to have a fine year for them. But I think they're going to struggle defensively early in the year, and I think he's going to walk as a free agent. And then next offseason or this draft, they're going to find their next Kyzir White, undrafted, late round, mid round, somebody in free agency to come in and play next to Zaven Collins, who I think does have a future with this team long term and White, and they're gonna prosper. They want to invest their money in pass rush, defensive linemen, and cornerbacks.
When you
And
see who's making $12 million and getting $12 million on the open market right now, I don't think that Isaiah Simmons is one of those players. So to give him, to just to lock him in,
he was benched by Vance Joseph, fair or not, at the start of his third year.
Yeah, I just think that I'm excited about the idea of Isaiah Simmons playing underneath a better defensive mind in Gannon and Nick Rawlis. And then also he's not having to make up for the unathletic Tanner Vallejos of the world or the Nick Vigils or the Ben Niemans that are out there on the field for him, and him, whoever's not in position to make plays, that his athleticism, they're just going to make up for it, because we know that doesn't work in the NFL.
Let me make a quick note here, because somebody did tell me that Gannon loves to thrive with players who have immense talent but haven't achieved their expectation or ceiling. And I got told this recently, that if Isaiah Simmons can't make it work with somebody like Jonathan Gannon, then it's not going to work for Isaiah Simmons.
For sure.
And if you can't make it work, Vance Joseph, I mean, we dog him on this show, but he's got love from a lot of players around the NFL. if Vance Joseph and Jonathan Gannon both say, yeah, this is just not working out, Isaiah, that's a big indictment on Isaiah Simmons. Maybe he goes somewhere and revamps his career if the Cardinals let him go. Who knows? I would root for that, Hassan Reddick style, but because I want players to do well. But there have been significant question marks. We talked about on this show, like, is he a football junkie? Is he a dog? Does he love football? Like, is he a Buda Baker? I think Zaven Collins loves football, right? Or does Isaiah Simmons love what football provides? Is he like a little bit big time? I don't know. I hope not. I want him to do well. I don't think he's ever going to live up to where he was drafted, though. I think that's borderline impossible. I mean, he would have needed to take a Luke Kuechly-esque jump, which is what they were kind of hoping he would be after that second year, that first year. And it's just not going to happen. So now you're stuck between a rock and a hard place of a positionless player who his default position is devalued now. And you've got to pick up a lengthy fifth-year option for a new regime. That if you're adding all that up, put it on a whiteboard, add all that up, and it adds up to, we're probably gonna move on.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe get a productive season from him. I mean, that's best case, because we talk about they've got to have players for this season, and right now we're looking at them and they've got 56 players on the roster. If you take what's reported with the addition of Kyzir White, who they've re-signed, which those deals have become official, around 56 of the 90. So still a long way to go. But, I mean, at least with Reddick, though, you got that one season where he had 12 and a half sacks. And it's just like, okay, in the right situation, he can thrive. But can he do it again? And, there's a part of Isaiah Simmons where, like, of course, he does have that dog in him. He only had, one other scholarship offer outside of Clemson, which was his home team in Kansas, which is not a football power. And you're like, okay, he's got a little bit of a chip, and he was a little bit undersized when he went to Clemson, and he made himself into a top 10 pick, and that's great. But then it's sometimes that goes away sometimes, right? When you start reading your headlines and you start believing that you're something that you're not, and the organization is enabling you the same way, instead of getting the actual true results on the field and being that player you once were for the Tigers that were contending for national championships.
He's 24 years old. You hate to see a 24-year-old be in his last year with the club that they drafted in the top 10, but I think that's where we're trending right now. We're trending also to tell you about our friends at Circle K, our fearless brand new partner, sponsor, whatever you want to call it. Brothers and sisters at Circle K. We love Circle K, what they provide not only for us, but our friends here in the Valley. We think of ourselves premium sports content, synonymous with sports here at PHNX. Circle K are synonymous with convenience stores, premium gas selection, snacks, coffee, beer, whatever you want. Do it with our friends at Circle K. And get this, we're going to help you out. We're so excited to partner with them. And to kick things off, we've teamed up with an amazing new giveaway opportunity. All you got to do, grab your cell phones, your smart devices, text PHNX to 31310 for an opportunity to win a $500 gas card, or I'm told spending a $500 on donuts if you want. Probably last year for the rest of the year. But you got to text PHNX to 31310 for an opportunity to win that sweet, sweet gift card from our friends at Circle K. Been telling everybody, I live in Maricopa. It's like fine dining at Circle K. All the best possibilities. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Stop, feel safe, be able to go in, clean. Circle K's are always immaculately clean. Never have an issue using the restroom, getting gas from there. $500 can be yours. Check it out right now from our friends at Circle K.
It's unbelievable what Circle K has. We have our Circle K snack stand here. I just had some delicious sweet gummies. And let me tell you about some other gummies that we have. OG's Brands. Our friends over at OG's doing it better than anybody else in our great state, Arizona, but Arizona's Cannabis Kitchen. They've got so many gummies, a gummy for every occasion that you want. You can tailor your cannabis experience with our friends over at OG's. They're all about culture, and everything that they do is right in line with what we're doing over here at PHNX. And they're truly about making experiences and weaving it into the fabric of both PHNX and, of course, our community here in Phoenix and in the Phoenix metropolitan area. You got all the great flavors. They've got their tropical flavors. You've got their new strawberries and cream flavor, which is the Happy Balance gummy that just hit shelves that you can find in your local dispensaries. You got raspberry orange. You got watermelon. You've got, of course, the famous orange creamsicle, blackberries and cream. And then, of course, they've got their sleep time gummy. You got a tough time, you're staying up at night thinking about this Arizona Cardinals lack of moves in free agency. Well, don't lose any sleep over that. Pop one of these OG's Sleep Time gummies. It's aquaberry flavor. It will help put you to sleep and keep you to sleep. Check them out. You got to be 21 years or older, but check out all the products that they have to offer at ogsbrands.com. Check them out on your socials as well, at OG's Brands, OGEEZbrands.com, and on social media at OG's Brands. Got to be 21 years or older.
Right on cue, as we talk about DeAndre Hopkins, Jen Slater of NFL Network saying no traction right now with D-Hop and the Dallas Cowboys. This, of course, after Micah Parsons tweeted out, eyeball emojis, DeAndre Hopkins, whatever it is, now is time. And I got tipped off about, what was that, a week ago, 5 or 6 days ago. Cowboys have checked in. They've checked in on D-Hop. Now, maybe they're checked out, but they were in the mix. I still think they're going to monitor the market. But Jen Slater does a phenomenal job stating that's not happening as of right now. So a perfect segue into the D-Hop market, which I told Bo I thought we'd get a trade sooner rather than later this morning. See the wideouts, Jacoby Myers land somewhere. Some of these second and third tier wideouts, which is most of what this free agent pool is, are starting to sign. And it's interesting. You get somebody like Darren Waller going to the Giants for a late third. And I don't think it, dismisses them from the Hopkins market, but I think probably not going to happen with the G-men now. I mean, what do you make of the Hopkins market? And do you think the Cardinals, they're under some kind of sense of urgency to move him? Or are we going to get back into they should just keep him at the end of the week because people are playing hardball all of a sudden?
No, I think that this is just the first dominoes that are falling, and it's a matter of just being patient and waiting for the deal, because it's just going to take one team to get a deal done for DeAndre Hopkins. And you're going to see, these divisions that are going to start to become a hotbed for activity, whether it's free agency or whether it's trades. We'll see what happens with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's apparently joining our friend of the program, Pat McAfee, tomorrow on his show. Maybe he'll tell us what his future is as far as his playing career goes. But Alan Lazard just signed with the Jets today for reported 4-year, $44 million deal. That on top of the Myers deal that you said was 3 years, $33 million. So those guys getting around $11 million per season. Michael Thomas re-signing with the Saints for $10 million. So that's like the going rate for fringe, maybe wide receiver ones, maybe solid wide receiver 2 second options in this league, where you've got DeAndre Hopkins, who's no doubt about it, even going into his age 31 season, he's still playing at a high level. But he's making a pretty penny as far as that goes. But I think that DeAndre Hopkins, there's still time for his market to develop. And we saw all last season, we saw a ton of activity with some top wide receivers. Now these guys were in their 20s, but throughout the offseason. So it wasn't just at the beginning it popped off and you got the Devontae Adams trade, but then you had like the Tyreek Hill trade. You had the A.J. Brown trade on draft night. You had Hollywood Brown draft day trade. So there's still tons of opportunities for the Arizona Cardinals to do what they've pretty much set out to do even before hiring a general manager, and that's trading DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I don't have any appetite for like the Twitter talk of Hopkins going for like a fourth. It's like, what are you doing? Like Michael Bidwell, for all of his faults, would not agree to that. Like, again, the Cardinals have almost $40 million in cap space. Why do they need to force a DeAndre Hopkins trade if it's not there? I think it is there, by the way. I think they're going to get a second round pick and then some. But this notion that we've taken a hard right turn to DeAndre Hopkins being worth nothing, when did that happen? I'm not buying that. I do think maybe teams are pivoting off if they feel like, oh, we can't afford it. But I do think there are plenty of teams. Hello, New England. Kansas City still has some money to spend that are very much, that arms race in the AFC is no joke. Now, maybe what we're seeing right now in the NFC is teams are being able to take a little bit more of a caution pursuit. And we've got asked in the chat, didn't Waller go for a fourth? No, he went for the 100th overall pick, which is a late third. I think it's a comp pick. But it's a third nonetheless, just like Kansas City's pick in the 60s is a second. So
yeah, that was the Monte Sanders third round pick last year. That's what so the Cardinals were able to start. They got him for Hollywood Brown.
I don't have any patience for let's just, they're going to unload Hopkins just to unload him. I mean, bad organization.
Even if he's on this roster come training camp, or I mean, there's going to be a team that becomes desperate for that type of playmaking. They always do. And
well, it's just like they're looking at picks into 2024, Bo. So wouldn't it make sense then if teams are going to play hardball, which is ridiculous now because this market's awful. But if teams said, no, we don't need DeAndre Hopkins. And to your point, we get into training camp and somebody loses a wideout or the receiving core looks like trash. The draft class isn't ready. They call up the Cardinals and say, we'll give you our second round pick next year. Okay. We got our scouts rocking and rolling this college football season. We'll take that. He is easily your most valuable asset right now. More so, I love Buda. Buda does not play a position of note like receiver, like edge rusher. You know, Kyler's under contract. You're not getting rid of Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. He's 30 plus years old, making big money. I know that hampers a lot of teams, but you have to be able to go out and get a nice return for him. Because this fan base will literally lose their shit if you sell low on DeAndre Hopkins. You cannot. You just keep him on the roster. For optics, if anything, Monty, a fourth round pick, a third round pick, it's not worth it. You need a premium pick for a premium player.
Odell Beckham Jr., Juju Smith-Schuster, Adam Thielen reportedly meeting with the Panthers tomorrow. Those are the top receivers on the market now. That's who's available after this. You know, you see guys like Robert Woods, Michael Thomas, Jacoby Myers, and Alan Lazard signed. Like it was such a thin market, and now teams are going to start to scramble, and they're going to see who's available, and they're going to turn on the tape from last season and watch DeAndre Hopkins still play at a high level and say, "Hey,
14 catches in the first game he came back."
Yeah, this is going to be well worth it.
I get it. Other fan bases, they want to pay the lowest amount. And then you've got people within this fan base, rightfully so, they're like, we should get a first round pick for DeAndre Hopkins. And so they'll probably find somewhere to meet in the middle. But our guy Jordan Schultz, who's breaking every story, I don't know if you guys have noticed that, damn near every signing has come from Jordan, is saying that adamantly Cardinals back in January came on this show, other shows, they're trading DeAndre Hopkins. They want to move off of him and get a pick in return and get that money back. So again, it's number one reason I wouldn't worry about cap space. And then it's going to get done. I still think it gets done this week, Bo.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, that would be great to be the top story tomorrow after having two, decent days. Nothing crazy. I feel like we've seen more movement the last couple of seasons. Let's get to some of these super chats real quick, Johnny. Yeah. People crushing it.
Let me read one. Let's put one on the screen here.
Okay, go ahead.
See our guys. Picking spreads, $2. Isaiah Simmons Breeze. Johnny, I hate you. No, I don't. I just listen. Is it a little bit that he snubbed the show twice? Maybe it's not. But he plays a position that is devalued and he's expensive and he's underperformed for his draft status. So that's where this is coming from. if he was an edge rusher and he had 15 sacks last year, I would say give him $100 million. We just this team's had too many Isaiah Simmons in their history of the draft, guys that are underperformed as rookies, and then they've re-signed them and they haven't worked out. I don't see the value. That's me.
Let's read another one from our guy Aris. Another Simmons question. Go ahead and read it, Johnny.
Isaiah Simmons is an edge rusher. Thoughts? That's been floated around by some people, and then other people are adamant that he's not an edge rusher. I don't know. I always thought he was.
Kyle Odegaard tweeted today. I think he was like, he's like, people from the back, say it with me. Isaiah Simmons is not an edge rusher or something like that.
He's not. I mean, he's not fluid enough. I think he could be Darrell Washington-esque and get 7+ sacks as an inside linebacker. Okay. I don't think they rushed him enough under Vance Joseph inside. What do you have, like 4 sacks last year? But like they don't need a true edge. They don't need Simmons to be a true edge rusher. They're going to get that in the draft. And I think they've got 2 rookies from last year that are going to play a role in that. But if you're Isaiah Simmons and you feel like you can rush the passer, I'd be screaming and yelling to do that more because that's how you're going to get paid.
See what our friend Bees has to say. $2 super chat, sticking with the conversation about Isaiah Simmons. Time for Simmons to be a speed rusher. Pro Football Focus agrees.
Maybe.
I don't think anybody sees Isaiah Simmons' skill set and says, hey, we're just going to put him into this role. People get too tantalized by the skill set, and they're thinking, I can harness this, and I can make him into the versatile Swiss Army knife that everybody envisioned he was coming out of Clemson. I just people's egos are too big, and they're too scared that if they were to kind of like put him into one and just really kind of have him focus on a single role on the playing field, that they would be doing him a disservice and that they would probably be cut down as far as their ability to coach.
You know who Isaiah Simmons is? He's Taysom Hill. He's not a franchise quarterback, but he's somebody who can do a lot of cool shit, right? But he's not somebody that you want taking 45, 30 dropbacks in a game, right?
Right.
And he's Isaiah Simmons. Had he been a 3rd-round pick, everybody been like, that's good value. He's a really serviceable NFL player. He was a top 10 pick. He was drafted over about 250 other guys, and he plays a position that's devalued. His base position is devalued. But he's flashy, and he's young, and he blew up the combine, and everybody loves him, and I get that. But it's like everybody in this chat, God bless you all, 360 in here, would rather have Tristan Wirfs right now or CeeDee Lamb because we know what position they play. Mm-hmm. They play receiver and tackle at a high level, right? Jedrick Wills. And that's Keim he could not help himself. Mm-hmm. He took these positionless guys and guys from small schools. Now, I know Simmons wasn't that. And he thought, I'm going to change him. I'm going to start a new wave. And it's just like Monty and JG, they just want to do what's been working for teams for 20 years.
Last super chat that we have right now. You can get in, of course. But Mark Moreno is saying, thanks for the $5 super chat, by the way. Hey, Bo and Johnny, what position do you think the Cardinals will target next in free agency? I think, Johnny, you look at it, they started to fill out the linebacking room, right? Where it was pretty much Zaven Collins, and then if you view Isaiah Simmons as a linebacker, then yeah, and then everybody else is either leaving or unsigned. So it was just like a one-man group, and now I think that group is the cornerback room. I think that this team will look to maybe a cornerback potentially sign. They re-signed Kelvin Beachum, so you look at the offensive line, that was a place you need to bring somebody back, and they did. So I think that the cornerback room or the defensive line group is the easiestly the spots that they're going to look to fill.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going like low hanging fruit, I think it's going to be defensive line. I mean, there's a rumor that Kevin Strong Jr. from Tennessee signing with the Cardinals.
Right.
With all due respect to Kevin, he's a backup, and so that's not going to get, I would assume, a lot of tread on Twitter from the big
wigs. Ledbetter re-signed today, right?
Those are like the Cardinals. Yeah. I forgot to make this point earlier. The Cardinals don't have any starting caliber defensive linemen on the roster, save for maybe Rashard Lawrence when he's healthy. Leki Fotu is a backup. We saw it last year. He should not be starting for you. So if we're going by that, where it's like 3rd-tier guys, defensive line, I do think, Bo, there has to be, we keep saying this, a sense of urgency. There's only so many centers that can start in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And Rodney Hudson's not coming back. So like I feel like center is as pressing as any position right now, because there's no assurance again that you're going to get a center to start for you at pick 34.
Yeah. Joel, William Jackson, I just don't think he's good any longer. He wore his welcome out quickly in Washington, and then Pittsburgh was just like, we're done with you. We didn't even have a full season. And William Jackson, the third, former, played at a good level, high level with the Bengals, and then just hasn't been the same player for the last couple seasons. Let me ask you this, because I think it obviously – what the hell are the Colts doing? So they just signed Samson Ebukam to a 3-year, $27 million deal. This is on the heels of yesterday signing kicker Matt Gay to a $22 million contract. I mean, they're spending money on they spend it on the defensive end and a kicker. Like, can the Cardinals please just fleece this team to move down
sent me
one
that exact
spot?
text message yesterday.
Huh?
Can we please? I said, Bo sent me that exact text message yesterday after that kicker deal. The Colts are primed to just be completely gutted with their draft capital.
Did you see that Matt Ryan, they're going to release him? He's going to get $12 million. He's going to get $12 million from the deal. He's not going to play football for the Colts.
That's the trade to be had, my guy. They got a 5th-round pick today for unloading Stephon Gilmore's bad contract to Dallas. To me, DJ White in the chat saying Cards are very interested in Colts center Ryan Kelly. We talked about it, like if that's a throw-in of a trade down, but he makes what, $12 million at 30 years old. I don't know if I want to pay Ryan Kelly $12 million to be average, but I mean, you need somebody to play center for you. And you can't.
Has there been a center deal this offseason where the guy's pulling in more than $12 million?
Isn't he like one of the highest paid centers in the NFL?
Yeah, I just don't. I think that. Well, I think it's just like you call their bluff, and if they want to release him, and then you can start to do it.
Well,
it was interesting to see. Yeah,
in a mega trade down, fuck yeah, let's do that today. But I don't want to ship picks to Indy for Ryan Kelly and only Ryan Kelly. Yeah,
right, correct.
I'm not into that. Like, hey,
Shaq Mason was interesting too. It's like you see this serviceable guard. He goes from Tampa to Houston. Now, Tampa was going to just outright release him. It was a Rodney Hudson situation where if they didn't find a trade partner, they were going to release him into the open market. And the Cardinals with Rodney Hudson said, well, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to bring him here for a 3rd-round pick. They ended up doing it for a 7th-round pick. Shaq Mason goes from Tampa, the guard who played for the Pats and the Bucks. He's now with the Texans. I just don't know if that's what you want to do with a guy like Ryan Kelly at this stage in his career. I just don't. Well, but look, if the Cardinals are interested in him, obviously you need to figure out what the future of that position looks like. Whether it's a veteran that you're going to be a bridge, but it's got to be, and it's not going to be hard to upgrade over last season because the play that they got.
You're not kidding.
It just wasn't, the consistency wasn't there. Hopefully just having more under center plays would take away some of the bad snaps that you saw. But man, I just don't.
How many games did he even play last year? Here's another guy who didn't live up to his draft status, but he's 30 years old. He played 17 games last year. So I guess he missed a bunch of time in his second season. He's been in the league for 6 years. He made the Pro Bowl twice, 2019, 2021. He's probably slightly above average, but like they're not paying other positions premium money to be slightly above average, and they're sure as hell not giving up premium draft capital to do it. So, the Colts are. This is a Ballard. I think a Ballard. Isn't it a Ballard draftee, or was this a Grigson guy? I can't remember. I'll have to look that up after the show. But to me, again, you want to say we got to dump his money. Cardinals, can you take it while we trade up for Anthony Richardson? Fuck yeah, let's do that. Cardinals have the money to do that. But there's no way I'm giving the Colts like a 4th-round pick for Ryan Kelly to be average next year when it's like you got to take on Aaron Donald and Javon Hargraves and these guys in the NFC West. Like, you can't see how bad the Colts were at the end of last season, how inept their offense was. And I get that a lot of that was Jeff Saturday. But to me, it's just like that. Please, God, draft a center high. Find somebody that can come in and be with Kyler Murray for the next half decade, please. That position has eluded this franchise. Lyle Senline remains the best center they've had in 10, 15 years. He was undrafted. And they had to bring him back multiple times. So, Mario Lopez in the chat trade Cards. Colts receive the 3rd pick. Cardinals get the 4th pick, a second in 2024, and Ryan Kelly. Well, of course you would do that deal.
To go up one spot or go down one spot?
Yeah. I don't know if I don't think you're getting their 2024 second, but I could be wrong. Maybe.
Let's get to some of these super chats. Rise Up 21. Johnny, do you want to read it?
I can. Do you think Marquise Hayes is a starting guard next season? Seems like a guy Gannon would like. Well, the problem with Marquise is he didn't play it all last year.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Lecitus Smith has an edge because he finished an NFL season. I don't think anybody has an edge, though, because, again, unless you're making good money or your name's Kelvin Beachum, who's proven himself, everything's up for grabs. I want Gannon to come into the OTAs and say every position is up for grabs, even Buddha's, and Buddha will go and take that position because it's Buddha Baker. But nothing should be assured. What did Keim and Kingsbury love to do is like assure guys of starting jobs. Zaven Collins is going to start day one. The fuck he is. They didn't play him at all his first year. That's what happened. So just say, hey,
and also take a beat on what you think you know about Marquise Hayes. Obviously, late round pick, right? 6th round out of Oklahoma. Played well in the preseason, but look, Sean Harlow had a solid preseason. Everybody was high in Sean Harlow. Everybody thought
they said Sean Harlow could start. Remember that?
Right. And then he got his ass kicked in the little playing time that he became a liability and barely saw the playing field. Billy Price beat him out for the center position. So you have to take with a grain of salt what you saw in the preseason last year against the Bengals and the Ravens. So, what we think we know about Marquise Hayes, it's not when the lights were as bright in the regular season. It was all preseason. It was all training camp before he had the knee injury. Now, we did talk to Lecitus Smith on Radio Row, and he said that Hayes is chomping at the bit to get back. And I think that those are to have 2 lottery tickets in the forms of late round picks at the guard position to vie for a spot or a backup role is good. But to say, hey, Marquise Hayes is going to outright win the job as a starting guard position, I have a tough time buying that.
Yeah, you can't count on those guys to be anything other than camp guys, and let's see what happens.
But he's a big, strong kid out of Oklahoma. I mean, you'll take that over, maybe a smaller school guy. I mean, Lecitus played at Tech, at Virginia Tech, and you had Hayes at Oklahoma. So you had him in some Power 5 conferences. They've got the size. Can they compete? We saw Lecitus do it in very sample size during his playing time his rookie season. Be interesting to see how Hayes stacks up.
Yeah, Marquise would have played last year had he not gotten hurt, which was the unfortunate part. We out of super chats?
Yep, we got one more. RV Davey, we need a QB. Can we pick up? So as of right now, Colt McCoy is still on the roster. So and it's just kind of interesting to see how things have played out. Are they gonna maybe just move forward with Colt McCoy as their quarterback?
Yeah, I think that would be a huge mistake. And I love Colt McCoy, but there are guys that are more dynamic that you could go get and pay the same kind of money. And Colt McCoy was a great soldier on the Kingsbury era for 2 years. Great job. But I mean, you got to give the fan base a reason to come out to State Farm Stadium next September. Gardner Minshew does way more with his mobility. So does Jacoby Brissett, who's got a familiarity, of course, with Drew Petzing in their time in Cleveland. I am anti-Colt McCoy being this team's starting quarterback. I'm not anti-Colt McCoy. I want Colt McCoy to make a bunch of money. He's a great human being. He's a great dad. He's a great ambassador for the NFL. He's been in the NFL for a long time. But Kyler Murray needs to heal up, which means somebody else that can start with some upside, they need to go spend money on. If they went out and overpaid for Jacoby Brissett, I'm okay with that, because it's he's going to start for you. He's going to take a lot of the reps in the offseason. That's valuable. That's value added. Plus, he knows the offense that you're running. This is Petzing's offense. So, to me, Brian saying Marcus Mariota, he's a little bit more of an upside guy than Colt McCoy, I would argue, although he kind of quit on the Falcons last year. I don't know if that's what you want, but to me, it's you got to do better. I don't know if they will. Maybe they'll run with him, but he's also coming back from injury. Is he even going to be ready?
Well, yeah, he wasn't reliable as far as to stay healthy last season. He's going to be another year older, 37 years old. They would have to assign another quarterback if they're rolling forward with the idea of Colt McCoy until Kyler Murray. They still need to get a backup quarterback as well to whoever you have as your starter. So because there's really, I'm not gonna say I just don't think that Kyler Murray is gonna be ready to start the season. So probably not for the first month, right? So you're gonna have to get somebody in there to play to back you up, and so you could be looking at maybe Colt McCoy and somebody else, or Brissett, and then McCoy is his backup. I could see a scenario where that plays out.
Yeah. Keep them around the roster. Again, the cap's not an issue there. It's not an issue for you to go check out gophnx.com, by the way. Subscribe using the promo code Howard, HOWARD. Become a diehard. Pick up some fresh gear at the PHNX merchandise locker, like this hat, this T-shirt. You get either for free when you sign up. Become a diehard member at gophnx.com. Bo and I are hanging out in the exclusive member Discord. Come yell and scream at us. When we're not on Twitter, that's probably where we're at. Also, check out the many events we've got coming up, and you're going to get 20% off all future events. We're going to have more insight pertaining to our draft party, Bo, here in the coming weeks. We've got so much exciting news. Cardinals may, be going through a retool, rebuild. We are not at PHNX Cardinals. We're full steam ahead with some big changes, Bo, on the horizon.
Yeah, it's going to be great. What's going on? Some exciting news that I heard. Some rumblings today that could impact what's going on with PHNX Sports and PHNX Cardinals. All exciting stuff, that's for sure. Also, our March Madness bracket going on with Run Your Pool. You got to check it out, play.runyourpool.com/PHNX. You can go get in there for free. You can win cash prizes. You can win cash towards the PHNXlocker.com, where you can get some great gear like we're wearing. A few more super chats before we get out of here. What do we got? Picking Spreads back in there. Thank you for all your generosity today and everybody that's joined in on the super chats. Over-under moves Cardinals make when this live stream ends. He's saying 0.5. What are you saying? They make another move today?
I'll say over.
You think they're going to make a move tonight?
Yeah. Yeah. We literally got off air yesterday, and I walked to my kitchen, and they re-signed Kelvin Beachum. And I'm like, what the fuck, guys? I will go over.
All right. I think that's it for today, right? We've gotten all the super chats. We've talked about Kyzir White. I don't feel like we spent enough time on it today, but I think Kyzir White is a slam dunk signing. It gets me excited after basically nothing day one.
I don't want to take credit for it, but I did tweet out that they hadn't signed anybody to an extension or multi-year contract externally for almost a year, and they immediately tweeted that out.
I made a video. It was going to go up on YouTube, basically breaking down why they haven't made any moves, and they were going to edit it, and lo and behold, they have a move. So we continue to, anytime we start to do something or think that they're not going to make a move, they make a move.
Make a move or make a video right after this about how the Cardinals are going to hang on to DeAndre Hopkins and then traded. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcast. Again, go to your phone, go to podcast, type in PHNX space Cardinals. Do us a favor, follow us, subscribe here on YouTube.
Yeah. And do this. Look, we're going to like it into existence again. More Cardinals moves. Hit that like button. You want to see the Cardinals make a move tonight. We'd love to break something down. We'll do it for you. Just hit that like button. We appreciate it. But as Johnny said, check out gophnx.com. Follow us on all your socials at PHNX_Cardinals and PHNX_Sports. We got our watch along going on with the PHNX Suns. You don't want to miss on that. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. You got those alerts set up because anytime we drop a vid about a free agent addition or a trade, you'll get alerted about it, notified on your phone. For Johnny Venerable, follow him on Twitter at Johnny Venerable. For me, Bo Brock, follow me at Bo Brock. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll talk to you soon.